You know, financial reports, they can feel like a total data dump. But buried in all those numbers, every quarter there's always a story. A story that tells you exactly where a company is really headed. Today, we're going to cut through all that noise and find the real story inside Magnite's Q4 2025 results.
All right, before we jump in, just a quick and necessary reminder. This is all for educational purposes. It is not financial advice, and everything we're talking about comes straight from Magnite's public reports. So, here's our game plan for finding that story. We're going to hit you with the single most important number right up front. No waiting. Then, we'll break down the jargon, pit Magnite's two main businesses against each other, and talk about why it all matters strategically. We'll wrap up by zooming out to see the full-year trend and what it means for the road ahead.
It really is the million-dollar question, isn't it? You get this huge report and you're just sifting through pages of data. It can be totally overwhelming. But the trick, the real key, is knowing what to look for. Finding that one metric that tells you almost everything you need to know. So let's not waste any time. We're starting with the one number that is the key to unlocking the entire story of Magnite's quarter. And here it is. 32%. That is the magic number. It represents the absolutely explosive year-over-year growth of Magnite's connected TV business in the fourth quarter. And importantly, that's after we take out all the noise from political ad spending. And really, that's it. If you remember literally one thing from this whole explainer, make it that 32%. It captures perfectly where the company is right now and honestly where it's going. Let's break down exactly why that is.
Okay, so to really get why that 32% growth is such a big deal, we need to make sure we're all speaking the same language. You see this term, contribution ex-TAC, all over their reports. So what does it actually mean?
The easiest way to think about it is this. Contribution ex-TAC is the money Magnite has left over to actually run the company. To pay salaries, R&D, all that stuff, after they've paid their media partners for the ad space. It's a really clean way to see how profitable the core platform is.
So that's the other piece of the puzzle we need to understand. We saw it on that 32% slide. Ex-political. Why is it so critical to pull out all those political advertising dollars? Well, it's because political spending is just wild. It goes through the roof during election years, and then it basically disappears. So by taking it out of the equation, you get rid of that temporary noise, and you see a much, much clearer picture of the company's true, sustainable, day-in, day-out performance. All right, now that we have our terms straight, we can get to the heart of the story. And it's really a tale of two very different business segments inside Magnite. You've got connected TV, or CTV, and then you have their other big segment, DV+. And wow, the difference is it's stark. On one side, you have the CTV business growing at a blistering 32% ex-political. And on the other side, the DV+ segment is growing at just 4%. I mean, the contrast could not be clearer. Now let's look at the actual money behind those percentages. Yeah, the DV+ segment is still a little bit bigger. It brought in about $101.5 million. But look closely, it actually went down a little bit from last year. Meanwhile, CTV just surged, from around $78 million all the way up to almost $94 million. The momentum is just undeniable. So the narrative that this report is screaming couldn't be clearer. You have one piece of the business, CTV, that is the powerful growth engine, just pulling the whole company forward. And then you have the other bigger piece, DV+, which is, well, it's basically flat. So we have the numbers, but what's the strategic so what? I mean, if you're a new executive walking into this company, or you're an investor trying to figure things out, why does this tale of two segments matter so much?
For any leader, these numbers are basically a roadmap. First, they tell you without a doubt that CTV is the growth driver, period. Second, it proves Magnite is riding that huge wave of ad dollars shifting from old-school TV to streaming. Third, it's a giant flashing sign telling you where the company is going to put its money and its people. And finally, it means that CTV's growth is pretty much the best health check you can get for the whole company.
Okay, but you might be thinking, was Q4 just a lucky break? A great quarter that doesn't really mean anything? Well, let's zoom out and look at the full year results for 2025 and see if this trend actually holds up. And oh yeah, it absolutely holds up. For the entire year, CTV now makes up a massive 45% of the company's total contribution ex-TAC. We're talking over $304 million. It is right on the edge of becoming the biggest part of the entire business. And that growth rate for the whole year? A super strong 22%, ex-political. So no, this isn't a one-quarter wonder. This is a sustained, year-long growth story that proves CTV is absolutely the core of Magnite's strategy.
So we've looked at the numbers, we understand the strategy, now let's just take a moment and look forward. What does this incredibly powerful trend really mean for Magnite's future?
If we had to boil this entire deep dive down into just one sentence, this would be it. Every single number, every trend we've looked at, it all points to one undeniable conclusion. Connected TV is Magnite's undisputed growth engine.
And that leaves us with one final, pretty interesting question. If we know CTV is the absolute star of the show, what does that mean for the future of Magnite's other, slower-growing parts? Now that is the next chapter of the story we'll all be watching.
Hey, if you found this deep dive into the numbers useful, do me a favor and hit that like button and subscribe for more. We'll be back to break down the next chapter in this story.